Hi, and welcome back to Hedge Fund Manager. I'm Karl-Mikael. Now, let's take a look at the fundamentals of Novo Nordisk. Remember what we are trying to estimate here. We are trying to estimate how many items, for example, how many shots of insulin is the company making, are they producing? How many items does the company sell? And at what unit price? If we were talking about Apple, for example, it's perhaps easier to visualize how they are making 100 million phones and they are selling them at $1,000 each. So that means $100 billion in sales. This is what we're trying to estimate, the number of units and the price per unit. And we're also trying to estimate how much does it cost to produce these units, giving all the input material, headquarters, the staff, marketing, etc. And how much does it cost to distribute them? Do you have to pay distributors? How much does it cost to actually get the phones out there to the retailers? So this is number one. What type of accounting data is the company actually manufacturing in terms of what sales and what earnings? And two, how will investors value the resulting accounting data? So these are the two things that we estimate in this fundamental section. And just to make it even more concrete, what multiple will, for example, a year or two of 25% EPS growth rate get? So if we have seen the company, let's call it manufacture, 25% EPS growth rate 2 years in a row, what is the market likely to and what should it warrant that data series in terms of valuation multiple? So now let's take a look at Novo Nordisk's actual numbers. So this is their sales growth quarterly, but on a year-on-year basis. And as you can see here, after they started manufacturing and marketing their Ozempic weight loss drug, they got a huge boost in terms of growth rate. And now they're coming down a bit from recent highs. The question now is, what type of growth rate will they be able to sustain going forward? The drug is a little bit effective than they thought, given recent studies, and they have come down a little bit, and they are getting more competition. But will they stay here at about 19% annual growth rate, or will they come down to maybe earlier levels of maybe actually slightly below 10% annual growth rate? I think that they still have a lot of innovation and they have some of the best staff in the pharma industry, and it's a huge company. They definitely have more to show than just insulin and Ozempic. So things are, I would bet that things are coming, but also that they will not be able to sustain as high growth rates as they did when they were more or less a monopoly of this Ozempic drug. And then looking at EPS growth, I mean, it was even higher, of course, as their margins expanded. But is the recent 15% level here, is that representative for going forward? Or does 10%, maybe down here, does that seem more reasonable as an average level going forward? Maybe 8% or 12%? Well, it's a little bit hard to say. So let's see what analysts are talking about. What are they expecting? Well, for 2025, they are looking at sales growth of 15% the year after that as well, and then 11%. They're pretty optimistic, at least more optimistic than I was. And in terms of EPS growth, they are not expecting falling margins. So they have even higher EPS growth than the sales growth. So if they were to actually deliver on 12 to 19% annual EPS growth, then that would definitely warrant a price earnings multiple of more than the current 19, I would say. We can also, I would say that I think given all this, it's pretty likely that they should be able to manage to grow EPS by at least 8% per year. That is what the average company on the stock market does, and they should be able to outperform the average boring industrial services company on the stock exchange. And professionals, they are actually expecting 50 to 100% higher growth rate, so 12 to 19% rather than the 8%. EBITDA margins, they look steady enough and increasing, and there is actually no reason to believe that they will crash down, no matter what the study of Ozempic's effectiveness says. They will keep selling this. And we come to valuation multiples. EV to sales has collapsed from 18 times to about 7 times. I think this level should easily be maintained, meaning this is actually pre-Ozempic standards, and I think that one of the reasons it has come down so quickly is that some investors are just saying, fuck it, I'm giving up, I'm getting out of this stock. Doesn't really matter what the valuation is. This is an X growth. I'm going into something else, maybe the Mag 7 or something. But this to me seems like an overreaction, just as the final push upward here from 12x to 18x wasn't really called for. That is also, I would say, an expression of the index disease, where the largest companies in the index, they get an unproportional amount of the money inflow into asset management. Looking at price earnings ratios, well, the 50x was of course way too high, and it's often hard to understand how you can even get to those levels. Who is the stupid fucker that actually buys into the company like this? The answer is, it's not a person, it's a computer that just does what it's supposed to do. It tracks an index, and the higher the index, the more they buy until something breaks. But now down at 19x, it seems that what we have seen is that process in reverse, taking it way too low. And then we have a dividend of 2.5% on top of whatever we seem as a likely growth in fundamentals and a re-rating in terms of valuation multiples. So I would say what we have here is, in summary, we have sales, earnings, cash flows, and equity assets evolve at perhaps a 10 to 15% per year, maybe even faster if we are to believe the average analysts, so maybe even up to 20% per year. And valuation multiples, well, at 19, it seems a little cheap. I mean, it's just slightly more expensive than the average market. And then on top, we have the dividend yield of 2.5%. So the sum of it all is maybe 12 plus 1 plus 2.5, about 15% CAGR, total return CAGR for this company. And on top of it all, I would say that there is some added potential, because this is an innovative company. They are more likely to come up with an interesting drug and boost their growth rate again. They're probably also likely to make better iterations of their Ozempic drug, or at least better studies showing how effective it is. I think they have definitely more room to grow with both their insulin business in terms of innovation, both in terms of the actual the pharmaceuticals, but also in the formulations and how they are delivered to the client. So I would say that the risk is slightly lower than the market, and the potential is slightly higher for the market. So this is probably a good investment.